I want you to meet Minna Lederberger. Let me say a few words about her. Minna moved to Australia shortly after her marriage in 1998. Oh, it said 88, okay. You'll hear her twang in a moment. Where she started her family, 2 children. She survived a life-threatening illness in December 2012, which resulted in her losing both lower limbs. She worked as a medical secretary in the heart and lung transplant unit at the Alfred Hospital for many years. Today, triumphing over her severe life challenge, Minna is an education guide and volunteer at the Jewish Museum. Minna also volunteers with Beit Raphael. Those of you who are not familiar with Beit Raphael, it's an absolutely wonderful organization that arranges for extended family of individuals who are hospitalized with accommodation, food, support systems, moral support and otherwise. And actually it's invested near each hospital accommodation premises, so if people do not have the ability to stay over for the weekend or otherwise, they can. So that's wonderful. And also, Minna delivers boxes to patients on Fridays, Shabbos boxes. She is the first ever amputee volunteer at Caulfield Rehab, where she regularly meets with patients. It's our honor, Minna, that you're gracing us with your presence, and I look forward to hearing more from you. Please join us.
Label, thank you for reaching out and asking me to come and share a little bit of my story. I can still remember the conversation I had with the vascular surgeon. It's like yesterday. It went like this. He said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but it looks like you're going to have both your legs amputated below the knee." And I said, "No." And he said, "I'm sorry?" And I said, "I have to dance at my daughter's wedding." And he said, "Oh, is she engaged?" And I said, "No, she's not engaged, but she will be. And then when she gets married, I need to be able to dance at her wedding." And he smiled and he said, "Don't worry, you will." I know, typical Jewish mother, that's all I worried about at that point was my daughter getting married. But honestly, God's honest truth, that was literally my first immediate response to hearing that I was going to lose my legs. Okay, so let's rewind and see where this all started. It was December 2012, and my daughter Dahlia had just graduated from Beth Rivka Ladies College. She had completed VCE. And a gap year to seminary in Israel was planned with her 2 best friends, and her ticket was booked, and she was going to leave at the end of December. So I thought, why not take the opportunity and book a family holiday, miss the Christmas rush, and take 2 weeks and we'll just be together, her brother, me, and my husband. I found a Salt Beach resort, northern New South Wales, and I booked it. Unfortunately for our family, that old saying, man makes plans and God laughs, kind of came true, although I don't really believe God laughed. By day 2 into our holiday, I was on life support in intensive care in a small country hospital called Tweed Heads. My immune system was attacking itself. Dr. Sia told my family, "I'm not really sure what it is, but I have to take a guess, because if I don't, she's going to die." So he guessed. A very rare autoimmune disease called HLH by the initials. It's really hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. I can spell that because I was a medical secretary, and you can all go home and Google it later. He guessed that's what it was, but he would have liked to have blood work to confirm the diagnosis. The problem with HLH is that the blood work is done at the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, and it takes 5 days to get results, and I didn't have 5 days. So he took a punt, and thank God, he was right. Treatment for HLH was chemotherapy and steroids. But that autoimmune disease wasn't the only thing going on. I also had a streptococcal infection and toxic shock. Okay, which came first? Those are the things that the doctors like to talk at. Which came first? Who knows? It didn't really matter. They all had to be treated. And subsequently, I was put into a medically induced coma. And I was in that coma for 12 days. When my son Ellie saw me walking on this short talk, he said to me, you know, I was 14 then. And I remember that fateful day when Dr. Sia pulled us into that side room. You know, anytime a doctor says, let's go into this side room and discuss things, you know that's not going to be good. And he said, you're going to have to prepare yourself. You're dying. Your mother's dying. Your wife's dying. And it really doesn't look good. So I asked him, what were your thoughts? Like, what were you thinking about when he told you this? And he said, I was calm. I accepted that this was God's will. And so be it. He then added, how am I going to get up for Minyan every morning to say Kaddish? And how am I going to go for Mincha Marav every day? And I laugh because if you know my son, he loves to sleep. And so that was like the biggest thing going on in his head. How am I going to get up for Minyan? Truth is that when I learned that I had to have amputation, I also accepted it. There wasn't any, let's go get a second opinion. My feet were gangrenous, and they would have to go. They were dead. Midway through my coma, I was still in a coma, they transferred me to a larger hospital called Wesley, which is in Brisbane. And they thought, look, if and when amputation happens, at least you'll be in a bigger hospital. I mean, everyone's told me Tweed Heads is like a country town hospital. They really weren't prepared for something like this. By the time I emerged from my coma, I couldn't do anything independently. I couldn't even press the call button for the nurse. I couldn't brush my teeth. I couldn't toilet myself. I couldn't shower myself. I couldn't even turn in my bed from side to side. And the list goes on. My muscle memory would relearn, and it did. But this was going to take a long time. While in Brisbane, Rabbi and Rebbetzin Jaffe took care of us. They took the kids out for a couple of day trips. They made sure on Shabbos that we had meals from challah to dessert. People who were going to surfers from Melbourne brought us Klein's frozen meals. I mean, I cooked for 2 weeks. I mean, I'm a Jewish mother. I cooked a lot, but even that wasn't enough. The idea of our family being in Brisbane and all of our support system in Melbourne really didn't make any sense. And by mid-January, with the help of then federal MP Michael Danby, I was able to get a medical flight back to Melbourne. On Australia Day 2013, Dr. Michael Bruce performed my amputation. What I learned from this experience is that community is so very, very vital to one's health and well-being. And as a family, we just kind of happen to have our feet in a lot of different communities. My husband Sam is a yeshiva graduate, and so is our son Ellie. And they still daven there. Catch them every morning after Kiddush for Chalent. They're there. My husband's parents, Allah Shalom, were part of the Adas and Kol Beis Talmud communities. And my daughter and I drifted a little bit over to Mizrahi, and that's where she met her husband, Aaron Goodhart. So Dahlia didn't get to go to seminary at the end of December. And socially, she was stranded. So one of her girlfriends suggested, why don't you become a madricha at Bnei Akiva? Thought that would be a good idea. As a Beth Rivka girl, she never went to Bnei. And I can still remember her coming to see me at the hospital after her interview. And she was crying. I mean, literally, tears rolling down her face. Dahlia, what's the matter? Why are you crying? She goes, I'm not really comfortable doing this. I don't think I really want to do this. I said, it's okay. I said, if they offer it to you, you can say no. They didn't even offer it yet. You just went for the interview. So who do you think was doing the interviewing? Her soon-to-be husband, Aaron Goodhart. I can remember Aaron telling me how his mom joked to him that he could interview for potential spouses. I am a very big believer in divine providence, hashgacha pratis. And I'm telling you, if you're not aware of it today, by the time you leave here, you will see it every turn. It's always there. You just have to look for it. All of these communities were part of our healing process, whether it was people bringing us food for weeks and weeks on end, or people forming groups to say Tehillim, or people just calling to support my husband and my children. And so the journey continued. I was in rehab for a month. I went home in a wheelchair, and I had to learn how to do things from a sitting position. I was thinking, how am I going to get a cup of coffee to the table? Put it between your knees, and then you can move the wheelchair. Things you learn. Eventually, I learned to stand, walk, and live a life on prosthetics. A lot of things I needed to learn, they would all come at different times. And probably the first thing I needed to learn, and this was even way back when I was in hospital, was patience. And that's one of my biggest deficiencies, and other than not having legs. So I'm still not a very patient person, but I'm extremely fiercely independent. And my nature is not to be on the receiving end, but on the giving end. And so this was a whole new world for me. I accept that I was given a second chance at life. And I really want to make sure that I'm living the very best life I can. And I want to make sure, more importantly, that I'm fulfilling the mission, the reason why God put me on this earth, because each and every one of you is as unique as your fingerprint. And that means there's a mission on this earth that only you can accomplish, no one else. The trick is figuring out what the mission is. So, sorry, I can't tell you what that is. You're going to have to figure that one out for yourself. The first steps for me in this new life was acceptance. And I had to accept that life was going to be different. And I had to adapt to a new way of interacting in the world. And the quicker I came to terms with that situation, then the quicker I could move forward in a positive way. Hakarat hatov, acknowledging the good. This is also one of my keys to success. Acknowledging the grace of God and recognizing his generosity and of the communities around me. So my morning mantra is repeated daily, Moda Ani. I offer thanks to you, living and eternal King, for you have mercifully restored my soul within me. I resonate with this statement more than ever before. I think I can remember beginning to say Moda Ani and resuming my morning prayers when I got to rehab. It took me a little bit of time. It was really emotional. And the first time I remember saying it out loud, I can remember crying tearfully. Like, how did God allow me to survive and live? And how grateful I was to still be able to be a wife and mother to my children. In my opinion, the primary source for my return to good health and my survival was my faith. At every stage, I felt that God's aura was there and his supportive hand on my shoulder. And he truly supported me throughout. I've always been a woman of faith, and I've overcome many other health challenges before. But the presence of God during this one, this was the closest I ever felt to him. And I also recognize that God is involved in my daily life. It's all about bitachon and emuna, and I'm sure you've heard these words batted about a lot when you come to Spiritgrow. And they both mean different things. But bitachon is trusting that God is there for you. You know, we know he's involved in the big picture, the tsunamis, the coronavirus, the earthquakes. But he's really involved in your life, and you just don't notice it. So if I'm driving down Carlisle Street and it's pouring rain, and I need to stop at Glick's for something, and as I'm driving past, someone pulls out of a spot, and I pull in, it's not a coincidence. God has orchestrated that very moment just for me. I mean, how humbling is that? That God is going out of his way to do something just for me. For me, acknowledging God's presence is the most important thing in my life. I'm now 7 years into this journey, and there was a point that I decided I really need to give back. The communities were so amazing to me, I wanted to give back. And as Label mentioned, I do my Shabbos boxes, Beit Raphael, and I'm an education guide at the Jewish Museum. And the one I'm most proud of is being a first ever amputee volunteer at Caulfield Hospital, because these patients hear anecdotally from many allied health professionals, doctors, physios, occupational therapists, physicians, oh, you're going to be fine, it's a piece of cake, you're so strong. But they only can tell them anecdotally what they hear. They haven't lived that life. I'm living the life. They can share their experiences with me, and I can share my experiences with them. And I'm proof that you can move forward and you can have a productive, positive, happy, and good life. Being able to help others demonstrates that even though I'm considered disabled, and I have a parking sticker that says I'm disabled, I can still have this kind of positive impact. And being able to contribute to society is one of the most fulfilling things anyone can do with their lives. And so if you're not doing something, start small, find something you're passionate about, and give it a go. Once I got home, I stumbled on a TED Talk that was really beautiful, and it really spoke to me. And it was given by a monk, and his name is David Steindl-Rast. And his talk was on gratefulness. And he says that we all want the same thing, to be happy, and that gratitude provides the key. And we all know people who have survived many hardships in life, but sometimes when you look at their faces, they're deeply radiant and happy. And why are they like this? And the answer is because they're grateful. It's not happiness that makes us grateful. It's gratefulness that makes us happy. So how do you do that? How do you go about living gratefully? And he says that if you become aware that every single moment is a given moment, it's called an Eit Ratzon in Hebrew. It's not something that he's just made up. It's a given moment. Then every moment is a gift. And you have no way of knowing whether you're ever going to get another moment. And so if you're given this opportunity, it's precious. And it's an opportunity to be grateful. So really the key to happiness is in our own hands. Because moment by moment, you have the ability to be grateful. And so that's how I try and live my life. God is at my center. He's the one that's in charge. He's the one that knows the outcome, not me. I do my hishtadlut. I try and make sure that whatever I'm doing. But at the end of the day, there are things that I have no control on. A shidduch for my son, he's 21, okay? My daughter just had a baby. I want her to be healthy. My husband has a business. I have no control over whether these things will be successful. It takes a lot of work to be able to say, I'm throwing this one upstairs. I'm giving it to you because you're the one that at the end of the day will make that shidduch. At the end of the day, will make sure that we're all healthy, that we're all happy, that we're all living and fulfilling our mission on this earth. Thank you.
I think, Minna, I speak for everybody when I say that was one of the most moving presentations I've ever heard. And I know that you inspired me. And I have no doubt you inspired not only me, but every single person in the room. Thank you.